TODCAST Season 6, Episode 4 with Abigail and David by Kaman. Andre in the production, recorded at Fotobaren 16 February 2022.
Great. Thank you for coming, Abi. Now I'm going to try and read your whole name. I might get this wrong, and I keep doing it all the time. So, Abi Høier Hoel?
Abi Høier Hoel.
Okay.
I know. I practiced like the first, I'd say, solid couple months before I got married. I was like, I can't, in good conscience go up and talk to the priest, and he says, "What's going to be your new last name?" Without being able to say that. So my friends just go Abi because they don't know how to say. So that also helps. You can also just say the English, I guess, American English way of saying my last name is Abi Høier Hoel.
Høier, okay.
Yeah.
And you took that is that a surname from your husband? Is that, am I right?
Yes, that's my husband's last name. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So, you are a Mexican American and women in tech. You're now an account manager for a local startup called Farmforce, which is an agri-tech company. After marrying your Norwegian husband, you left home from Phoenix in Arizona and had a promising career in financial advising, and migrated to Norway in December 2019. So that was 3-4 years ago?
Yeah, I would say a little bit less than 3 years ago. Mm.
And then basically you face some challenges here, which is where we're going to talk a little bit more about today, and how you came to be here. And I think, and the journey that we've been, there's a certain kindness to you. I feel like there's a certain warmthness to you as well. And very insightful is something I would describe. But how would you describe yourself, for people who haven't met you before? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I feel like that question is always so hard to answer because, you have this kind of perception of yourself. And this was something that I learned growing up, is that I always see myself in a worse light than the way that other people see me. And I think it's just because we hold ourselves to a certain standard. And I think sometimes, I don't consider myself especially interesting or remarkable. And I just want to be a nice person, and I just want to be kind to others. But I think if I really want to condense myself down and describe myself, first thing that I can think of is, that I am a daughter to an incredible single mother. I am a sister to 6 brothers and sisters who are all crazy and amazing in their own ways. I am a wife to an incredible husband who has supported me, loved me unconditionally. And I'm also a combination of, my Mexican ancestors, and there's also a part of me that is my American upbringing. And now I guess I'm adding the Norwegian facets to it as well. I think at the end of the day, I see myself as almost kind of like this soft energy. And it's taken a long time for me to see that softness as a strength. But now that I see myself as kind of as a whole person now in my late 20s, where I'm, getting those times of enlightenment as I grow and start my career and, got married, found people, I think that would be the best way that I could kind of see myself is, I always tie myself to the connections that I've made in my life with my family, with my friends, with my husband, with my siblings, and I just bring it all back down to kind of me being this soft person who just wants to love other people.
And you've moved through, different countries from Mexico to the U.S. And did you grow up and raised in the U.S., or is that later on in your life where you went to the U.S. Before coming to Norway?
So I was born and raised in the United States. Okay. I'm a first-generation immigrant. So my mom immigrated from Mexico to the United States when she was about my age. Actually, a little bit younger than me. I think she was like 22, 23. And she had my 2 oldest brothers in tow when they were 3 and 2. And she made this really big leap to give us a better life in the United States. So we didn't grow up in the nicest of neighborhoods. I always kind of am very real about my upbringing. And it's like we were poor. We grew up in predominantly Mexican communities, so we were surrounded by a lot of noise, a lot of good influences, a lot of bad influences, and overall, when I think back to my time in the United States, I would say that is what I remember the most, is the struggle But because of my mom's guidance and because of, what kind of a woman she was, I am happy to say that, after some time, we were able to purchase a house in a better neighborhood. I was 17 at that time, though, so it's like, it was kind of nice to see my mom fulfill her dream. And it was hard, for sure, to grow up in the United States. And, the stereotype, unfortunately, holds true that a lot of Americans just don't like Mexicans. And in the end, that was kind of the thing that pushed me to leave the United States. I experienced racism in the workplace. And sometimes I want to cry about it because, you look back and you just wish that you could have loved the place that you were born in. And you wish that you could see it the way that your parents see it. So like my mother saw it as this new place that gave her opportunities and it gave her the chance to raise her children the way that she wanted to raise them. But for me, it's like, it was a place, I'd say, the foundation of my family and the foundation of my growth. But it's hard for me to look back and not think about how I was treated. And long story short, I left that job because there was no accountability. And the apology that I was given from the person was basically one of those, something I said offended you, so I'm sorry that you feel that way.
Wow.
So not a real apology. And I think my husband, who was then at the time my boyfriend, had been trying to figure out, where were we going to live long term. And he's a Norwegian living in Norway, and I was, Mexican American. And it was kind of like, okay, where is our future going to go? And I remember being so upset at my experience where I was like, why did this happen? Why did this happen to me? What did I do wrong? Like, is it wrong to just be Mexican? I was like, is that something I can control? Is that something I can change? Do I want to change that? And when that happened to me, at first I saw the worst of it, where it was like, yes, I was right. America's a horrible place. Yeah, my mom might see it a certain way, but I've experienced and seen so much that says otherwise. And that's when my mom was like, maybe the reason that things aren't working out for you here is because you're not meant to be here.
Wow. Okay, that's a big statement. that must feel like, so awful, actually. It feels awful.
Yeah, because and I think she meant it in the best way possible. But I was taken aback, like, what do you mean? I'm not supposed to be here. But she kind of told me, she told me, ever since you were little, you never, ever seemed like the kind of person who was going to stay in one place. She's like, I've always watched you, and I just knew that you were born with wings. You were going to fly. And I knew that eventually you were going to fly far away. And for her and for me, this experience kind of knocked it into my head that maybe things aren't working out here because this is the final sign that says that there's someplace better out there for me. There's some place that I'm meant to be at. And this place has told me that this is not the place for me. And I think that's why so many things were working against me. And that's why it was, I didn't get the apology that I wanted. I didn't get the experience that I wanted. And I have a lot of great memories from growing up in the States. But ever since I moved to Norway, I felt like this should have been my home from the beginning.
Oh, wow, really? Yeah. Well, walk us through that journey. And I'm sorry to hear about, your experiences in the U.S. And, it's... Because on the top of my mind, I keep thinking, like, whether you have left your friends behind, a place of familiarity that people who can support you, but you kind of uprooted and came here. And actually, it was a blessing for you in some ways that coming here is a positive thing. So walk us through your journey in, say, the first year of coming to Norway, because I know, like, from our conversation, it was a bit of a hell. And it took some time to integrate. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so first, I did not take the decision to moving to Norway lightly. When my husband said, you should just come to move to Norway, I told him, I'm not going anywhere without a ring on my hand. I was like, I'm sorry. And as especially in our culture, it's kind of like, parents feel better when if you're going to move in with someone, there's some commitment there. And especially when you're moving 5,000 miles away, my mom felt a little bit better with, a sense of commitment, but she knew that, that he was committed. So we got engaged in November, and I moved here December. And initially, besides the shock of the climate, Norway is cold. I am from Phoenix, Arizona. I am from the desert. So that was like people breathe in this. I was like, people walk around in this weather and they're like happy to do it. And I'm just like, okay. But the first year, I think if there's one way that I could describe it, besides all the positive things of being in a new place and being reunited with my husband, and we got married that same January. It was like December, January we were married. And I think that was kind of the happiest memory of my life and of being in Norway was our wedding day and the day that we got to be married. And I'm going to cry because I always cry when I think about when I got married because my family wasn't able to come because of my mom's citizenship status. So that day is, sorry.
No.
That day is a little bit bittersweet. So it's it kind of kicked off, and it was the theme for my first year in Norway, which is very, very bittersweet, where I was so happy to be here. And I was falling in love with the country and with the people, but it's hard to leave your family, your friends, and then to have the biggest day of your life, and they can't be there. I have my close best friends since I've known since I was like 12, and a few of them actually flew out short notice because, it was like we got engaged, and then I said, I'm getting married January 25th, and they were like, okay, let's do this. If I have to sell something, I'm going to sell something, but we're coming to Norway. So I was very, happy that they were there, but I think that first year of being here in this brand new country, I mean, it was exciting, but it was incredibly lonely. Very, very lonely. And I had a great support system. And I think that I would not have survived that first year if I didn't have the support system that I have. But I think it's a theme that a lot of immigrants and a lot of people who've migrated here and left family and left friends, and some people have even left their children, to come and set things up and make a better life for them. I think a lot of people have felt that theme of, you're excited to be here, you're so grateful that you can build this new life and build this new world. But at the same time, there's always that loneliness that you just feel deep inside of you. And sometimes no matter how happy you are, you just kind of feel it. Kind of shading a little bit, like the memories that you're making and the moments of happiness where you still kind of, you'll miss that part of yourself. But I think that's okay.
I think this is the immigrant experience. I feel like this is the immigrant experience. Like, you're torn because you're torn away from your family, the roots of people who were your support system, and now you have a new support system. And it's good to know when I spoke to you about your journey, and I was just so touched by the people who supported you, and I wish that upon all the immigrants in this country to also have that support. But I know that not everyone do, and I think it's, but that does not lessen, what you've gone through. What I want to say is that loneliness, it really grips hold at times, even when you have the people around you. I think it holds on. How do you carry that kind of pain, when that comes? Do you sit in your moment, and do you take walks? How do you sit in that when it hits you hard?
I'd say I'm a very honest person, and I'm very honest, I believe, with myself. So if I want to cry, I cry. And growing up, that was hard because in Mexican culture, you're not really supposed to be emotional. And especially my mom, with her background, she raised 7 kids by herself, and my dad was very abusive, so there was a lot of that kind of messed up her world. And she was just so tough, and she was just so strong. And so my whole life, I felt guilty for being sensitive, for being soft, for crying a lot. So when I moved here, I made a decision for myself where I was like, the only way I can get through this is if I feel what I feel all the way out. Just feel it through, get it out of your system, because otherwise it'll manifest itself in other ways. And so I knew that I wanted to feel what I was feeling, to process it, and to be able to let it go. So I did a lot of crying. And I did a lot of relying on my support system. And number one person, again, someone that I, I'm so grateful for, and to this day I'll never understand what I did to meet someone like him, is, my husband, where it was, we kind of developed this early on, this language where I told him I was sad, I'm feeling lonely, and he would ask me, what do you want from me? Do you want solutions? Do you want comfort? Or do you want alone time? And because I'm such a cuddle monster, and he's like, he's like, okay, here she comes, and I just got to deal with it. I was like, I need comfort. I need comfort, and like, bless him, and everything that he is with his patience and his unconditional love. He never, ever, ever, rebutted me away. If I said, I'm feeling lonely, I need comfort, I need you to hold me, I'm sad, I'm upset, he would be working from home at his desk, and I would be sitting on his lap, just curled up onto him, and I would be like, I'm sorry, and he'd be like, no, it's okay. He goes, just stay a little bit quiet so I can do my work, and you'll be fine. You can stay on my lap. And so I think if I didn't have that, I think if I didn't have the mindset to just tell myself, feel the emotions, don't be ashamed to cry, let it go, take deep breaths and just cry your eyes out, and don't be afraid to ask for help. I don't think I could have survived the first year of being here as well as I think I did.
Do you think now that you are thriving, or do you feel like there's some element to your journey right now that you're surviving?
Yeah, I think we talked a little bit about this before, where I think when you're a person who's an immigrant, you're always going to be surviving while you're thriving, or thriving while you're surviving. Like, it's always going to be intermixed. I feel in a lot of ways that I'm thriving now because I've been able to start building my own friends. And part of that is because I started to take Norwegian classes. So that really helped as well with the isolation of the language, because not knowing the language of the people around you can be very isolating, because who are you going to talk to besides the person who you live with? So once I started going to Norwegian school, I got to meet other people who were also immigrants and became very close with them. We were able to just talk, about our experiences and sympathize and empathize with one another. I was able to join an organization called Women in Tech Oslo, met a lot of great women there who are in the tech field, and that's how I ended up getting my first job here in Norway at Farmforce, where I am now as an account manager. So then that kind of facet of my life thrived and fulfilled itself. But I think I'm also still surviving in a lot of other ways, where I was able to see my family for the first time in 2.5 years over Christmas, because they finally opened the borders.
Wow.
And that was just, I think I cried for like 2 weeks straight, being there with them and, getting to hold my mom, getting to hold my siblings. And, my baby brother, the last time I saw him, he was like this little brat straight out of high school. And now he's like 21 years old and 6'3". And I'm just like, when did you grow so big? And I played, he always says that I played such an instrumental part in raising him. So it was kind of like you missed out on all those memories. And so I think that's why I still continue to feel like I'm surviving while I'm here, because you do feel like you're missing out on what is being experienced there. And it's not like I want to leave Norway. I love it here so much. I love my life here. But it's like, again, it's that tie that we'll always feel as immigrants to our families, to our friends, to our home country, where you'll always feel a sense of loss of the years and the memories and the time that you could have built while you were there. And I think, that's where I still survive, is missing them. And then I think the other thing is I'm also surviving in a cultural sense where I love Norway, and I think Norway is pretty open-minded. But I think like any Western, predominantly white country, there's always going to be racism. And when I experienced that here, it was devastating. Because I think I had convinced myself that it was this perfect place and this was where I'm meant to be. And then it happens to you and you're just like, I forgot I was brown. Because for the longest time, you weren't being identified just by your race. For the longest time, I got to be a wife. I got to be a daughter-in-law. I got to be a sister-in-law. I got to be a new part of this family where, I love my aunts and uncles here. I love my sisters here. I love my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, incredible people. And I just got to be me. And then for, that first time that I experienced it, it was like someone grabbed me and shot me right back down to earth and was like, hey, don't forget, you still don't look like you're supposed to look.
That was a moment when you had to take a blood test, wasn't it?
Yeah.
For some health issues. So why didn't you talk about that? Because I don't want to talk this around before.
Of course. So. I had to go to the doctor. I'd been having a hard time with some sort of like allergies or something, and my husband had come with me. And the doctor was very nice, and he was like, oh, I just need you to go in to this other hallway and wait, and the nurse will call you in to get your blood out. And I was like, oh, okay. So we're there, we're sitting in the hallway. I see the nurse, and she's finishing up with like other people who are ahead of me. And she's very kind to them. You know, she's speaking to them like, oh, hi, dude, hvordan går det? Just very kind, bubbly, happy with them. And she's an older woman. And so I was thinking, oh, this is great. I'm very afraid of needles. So it's great that this person is, a comforting, seems like a happy woman. So I was like, okay, I think this might be okay for me. And then the next person leaves, and then it's my turn. And then I get up, she comes to the door. It was like an immediate just shift in energy. She took one look at me, and she's like, come. I was like, oh. I was like, okay. Then I just followed her, and I walk into the entrance, and she goes, sit. I was like, oh, okay. And I sit down, and she goes, hunt. And I was like, okay. And I didn't realize that the blood test was not here, but that it was going to be one of those ones where they prick you. She didn't tell me anything. I didn't even get a chance to ask her because of how, she was just like, sit down. Like, she wouldn't look at me. She looked very upset. And I thought, my first thought was, did I offend her? Did I do something wrong? Should I have had said hallo instead of hi? Maybe she's offended that she knows I don't speak Norwegian that well. And so I give her my hand, and all these thoughts are going through my head. And when I go to say something to her, I think I was going to tell her that I was a little bit nervous. She had already taken the needle out, and she just goes as hard as she can. And I'm not even joking. Like, people might say, oh, you're exaggerating, you're reading into it. No. You can feel when someone grabs your hand hard and stabs something into your finger as hard as they can. Because I remember going, ow. I yelled, ow, and I jumped. And I had to look away from her because the tears started forming in my eyes because of how quickly and how much it hurt when she stabbed me. And I was just like, and then she hastily put on a Band-Aid and was like, whoa. And it was like, I didn't even know how to feel. I didn't even know what happened. I just knew something wasn't right. Your first thought, I think, when you're a person who experiences a microaggression, you immediately put it on yourself and you think, what did I do? Did I offend them? Did I make a mistake culturally? Oh my gosh, like, I hope they're not mad at me. And then I didn't really say much. I came out and my husband was there and he was like, hey, how'd it go? And I was like, it really hurt. And he goes, oh yeah, sometimes they really hurt. And I was like, okay, I think we can just go. And we started to leave. And once we got to the car, that's when I was like, hey, I think that woman stabbed me too hard. And he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, I think she stabbed me too hard because she thought I was Thai. And he was like, huh? And I was like, when she saw me, she immediately changed energies. I was like, she was very rough with me, very rude with me. I was like, and I know that people had warned me before, because I had made friends with a Filipino person who's married to a Norwegian. She had warned me about that doctor's office where she said she's had trouble there before. Because that nurse specifically, there's like rumors that say that she doesn't like Asian women because she thinks that they shouldn't be here because they've all been brought by Norwegian men. And they're just here living on the system and, that kind of mentality. And we're in a small town. So this, unfortunately, is a predominant mentality amongst older people. And I told my husband, I think she was mean to me. She might have thought I was Thai, or she might have thought, I was a mail order bride or something, which, is also an assumption when people see a white Norwegian with someone who's not a white Norwegian. And so my husband was like, what? And he's like, okay, explain to me what happened. And I walked him through everything. And he was just like, oh my God. And he wanted to go start a fight with her. He was like, I'm going to go over there, and he was like, why didn't you tell me? And then I think he kind of registered why I didn't say anything, right? And he was like, that's the wrong question to ask. Next time that this happens, I'm going to take care of it because this is not okay.
Sometimes I just want to say, get these fucking people fired.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get all these fucking old Norwegian nurses, doctors, whatever, who can't stand immigrants in this country, fire them so that they can work on themselves. Because I want to be compassionate and, I want to be kind for people who do wrong as well to me. And I do think like they're all going through their trauma and they're going through all their fears. And when I was talking to Hyacinth as well, and, you know, there's an amount of fear in them. Yeah. And I think that that is on them and it shouldn't be on us. And I think like it's very detrimental for us. You know, I literally had to not go to my Fastlegger, you know, which is my GP from the public where don't have to pay so much. And I had to go to a private one and it's much more expensive. I think those things could be avoided in all cases and in your case as well. And what was astonishing with the story that you told me, not only the fact that what she did was so horrible, but what your husband did that really like shined a spotlight to giving me hope in some ways of this country, in honesty. How he said to you that I'm going to use my white privilege, my Norwegian privilege to stand up for you. And the fact that he said that, he recognized his power and he actually did something. And I keep wondering how many more people with that privilege can help. You know, even in your cases, if it's not your husband, maybe someone else in that department, that clinic can help you. Yeah. You know? Yeah.
I think it's so important. And I think this would be like my takeaway for, you know, anybody who's like a white Norwegian is you have no idea how much power you hold. You have no idea how important your voice is in these circumstances. So when you're the person who steps up, when you're the person who is like, hey, don't talk to them like that, or hey, they're having trouble understanding you, can I intervene and translate? Or hey, why are you, you know, treating this person this way? You sat us in a nice place in the restaurant, but they were here before us. Shouldn't they sit there? You know, and just calling out those behaviors, because the sad truth is that when we as the immigrants say, hey, you're not treating me right, it just confirms in their minds the stereotypes about us, that we're aggressive, that we're confrontational, that we're entitled, that we're ungrateful for the opportunity that we have for being here. But when a white Norwegian says, hey, what you just did is not okay, treat them fairly, then I think it kind of wakes them up and they realize, oh, okay, that was bad. I just got in trouble. And it's the sad truth. Yeah. And I think it's going to take a while before anybody, you know, will listen to us when we stand up for ourselves. But when someone who, you know, is from here and looks like them stands up to them, it holds so much more weight. So I just encourage, you know, all the Norwegians out there, you know, it takes one kindness to change somebody's life. You might not change the whole world, but you can change someone's individual world. And you can do that by just speaking up. Just say something.
I totally agree. And I think like we also discussed like how racism is quite different here from the US and the UK. I feel like it's much, much more in your face, you know, it's much more explicit. But here it's very subtle. It's kind of buzzing in the background all the time. And it's those microaggressions you're talking about, it's those little small actions, that behavior, you know, that leads to, you know, her pricking her finger in a certain way, you know. And I think I think that they don't often recognize that. And I think that really frustrates me. And I had so many of this discussion. It's like, is it ignorance or is it arrogance? You know? And when we're trying to thrive and, you know, and survive this, you know, we want to pinpoint and label this. And there are times where I think, do we really want to just say, okay, we know like Norway is a racist country in a certain way. And there's certain people who's going to exhibit racism in behavior in stopping us to thrive. But how do we go on for that? And I think like I want to know how you feel about that, you know, because obviously you came from the US where you experienced so much racism in your workplace that propelled you to come here to Norway, and now you're meeting these things. What is your thought process through that? You know, are you kind of boxing it on the side? How are you moving to the point where you are now?
I think in the past, I used to think, oh, this is just how life is. I should just be quiet and take it. I should be lucky that I'm here. I should be grateful for this opportunity. But you do not show gratitude by accepting abuse. That is not how relationships work. Not relationship with friends, not relationships with family, not relationship to your freaking country. That's not how it works, and it shouldn't work that way. So the first thing I needed to do was take that mentality and just rip it out of the notebook of my brain and just, you know, throw it away because it's not real. It's not true, and I shouldn't accept it. The other thing is that at the end of the day, I'm very privileged in the sense that I'm married to a white Norwegian who is a strong feminist, and he is all about, like diversity and, intersectional feminism. So I know that I have someone in my corner who's not afraid to call someone up or to go and cause a scene and call somebody out on it. But I don't think that we all have that luxury. So I think if I really, was going through this by myself, I think the first thing in my thought would have to be that I would need to tell myself out loud, this isn't your fault. This isn't about you. This is about them. They're having an issue here. They are struggling, whether it's for lack of intelligence, lack of empathy, that's their problem. They're struggling with the color of your skin. They're struggling with where you're from. But this has nothing to do with you and everything to do with them and their prejudices.
Right.
And then the next thing from there is, do you feel comfortable speaking up? Ideally, we would all love to speak up.
Right.
But sometimes we just don't feel like we have the courage that day. But it's like, what I can have is that I can have the courage to show myself grace after this incident is over, remove myself from the situation and show myself grace and tell myself, again, this isn't about you, this is about them. It's unacceptable. And sure, maybe today we didn't get to stand up for ourselves, but maybe tomorrow will be different. And maybe next time. And forgive yourself. Because I do think that when we put up with those things, we're kind of letting our own selves down. Like we're kind of, we could defend our, you could defend your inner self. Sometimes I had a good friend of mine. We were talking about like your inner child. And I told him that I really struggled with self-depreciating thoughts. And he told me, well, think about it as if you were talking to the younger version of yourself. And I want you to picture her right in front of you. Say the things that you're telling yourself to that kid. And you're like, no, I can't tell that to, little Abby. She was so soft. She was so vulnerable. I could never speak to her that way. Yeah. And that's when he told me, how can you speak to yourself that way now?
So powerful.
How is it any different? And so I think sometimes it does help if you kind of remove yourself from the situation and think, if I saw someone else being treated that way, if I saw my younger self being treated that way, what would I have wished I would have said? What would I have wished others would have done? Or what would I have wished would have been the ideal situation? And sometimes that gives me the courage to act a little bit more. But no matter what happens, no matter what you say, no matter what you do, I would encourage people, who, when they're going through this experience, it's so horrible. It's so demeaning. It's so, you feel almost ashamed. I just want them to know that they're loved. They don't deserve this. And you deserve good things. You deserve to live in a country with good opportunities, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
I think what you said is really well said, and I think like I've also come to that point as well. Like I deserve better. I deserve happiness, even though I'm in the foreign country. Yes. That I'm not born here, not raised here, and I don't speak the language. And I think you have also another powerful story, and I think like honestly, your story just kind of gives me hope that there are good people out there in Norway. And that was how you got to find your job, So walk us through, who was it that advocated for you for the job that you have? Who was he again? I can't remember.
Yeah, so I had joined an organization called Women in Tech Oslo, and I had just started volunteering, helping them with like their social media and joining their marketing team, just so that I was, I had something to do. I'm not a fan of doing nothing at home, so I was going crazy because I couldn't work. And I ended up meeting this guy who had immigrated here from Australia, and his name was Declan. So Declan, if you see this, I haven't forgotten you. And he was talking to me. We met one time. We met one time, and he was like, "Hey, you said you were looking for a job. What kind of work are you looking for?" And I was like, "Oh, just trying to find my foot in the door. I would really love to work for an organization with a purpose. I love to help people. Like I want to do something that's changing the world. Maybe not the whole world, but somebody's world. I would love to do something like that." And he goes, "Okay, let me poke around." Cut to like 3 hours later, and he goes, "Can you get a CV, a cover letter, and an application put together by 7 p.m.?" And I was like, "What?" What? And he goes, "Yeah." So I poked around, and I talked to someone from this organization called Farmforce. I just sent you the link to their website and all the things. Like, check it out. Give it a shot. I already talked to the VP of like communications or something, and I was like, "What?" And I asked him, "How do you know this person?" He's like, "I don't. I just went looking for her phone number, and I found it." and I called her. And I was just blown away, where I was like, you don't know me. You just met me. We only had a brief conversation for maybe less than 30 minutes, just talking. And a lot of it was about women in tech, not about me as an individual. And so he went and he did this for me. And I was just like, why? Like, wow, like, I'm so grateful, but why? And I just remember he told me, he goes, listen, I know what it's like to be an immigrant. He's like, I might have some white privilege and I might be, have male privilege because I'm a man and I work in tech. But when I came here, he's like, it was nearly impossible to find a job. And I wish someone would have called around for me. I wish someone would have, tried on my behalf. And so it just, he goes, I didn't think twice about doing it for you because I've been in your shoes before.
Wow.
Yeah. I'll just leave everybody with like my motto, which when I was in high school, I started listening to this band because my older brother was listening to it, and I thought he was the coolest, so I wanted to listen to it too. And I actually ended up falling in love with the band, and there was this lyric that it's like my mantra now, and I say it to people all the time, and it's that it's more important to be nice than it is to be wise. So you can be the smartest person in the room, but if you lack empathy, if you lack kindness, if you lack, that general goodness for your fellow human being, then you have nothing. And I think I just encourage everybody, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and I think that's how we continue to move forward.
Love that. Absolutely love that. Thank you so much, Abigail, for coming
Thank
today.
you.
It's
Thank
been
you.
lovely speaking with you. And
Yeah,
to you.
same.
Great.
Right.